Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadaatatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. So in the last class we found the master was discussing about the various types of the spiritual illumined souls. At first he referred to the Nitya Siddha, that there are few who never gets under the spell of bondage, under the spell of ignorance. They are always liberated. That's called Nitya Siddha. They are born just for helping others. And he gave the example of Rakhal Narendra Bhavanath, the choicest of his devotees, who were highly spiritually evolved. So they were termed as the Nitya Siddhas. And then he was mentioning that there are some called Kripa Siddha, that suddenly, as if the grace of God descends. So just to read that paragraph again, there is another class of devotees known as Kripa Siddha, that is to say, those on whom the grace of God descends all of a sudden and who at once attain his vision and knowledge. Such people may be likened to a room that has been dark 1,000 years, which when a lamp is brought into it becomes lighted immediately, not little by little. So while discussing this paragraph, we were indicating that it doesn't mean that there is no effort on the part of the sadhaka, of the spiritual aspirant. That he is aspiring, but there has to be the coming together of Purushakara and Kripa. That, as we find in some other context, Sri Ramakrishna gives that example, that there were two farmers. One followed the instruction of his forefathers, who told him that never listen to the forecast. Whatever may be the forecast, at a particular time of the year, at a particular time, you should plow the land. And some other farmer, he thought that why to plow the land when the forecast is this year it is going to be drought. So one doesn't listen to the forecast as his forefathers have mentioned, he plows the land, and the other doesn't plow the land. And then the forecast proves to be wrong, and there is a sudden torrential rain. Now who is going to get the benefit? So the one who has plowed the land. So this is a wonderful example which Sri Ramakrishna is giving, that what we have to do, that we should be doing and should keep the field ready. When the rain comes is not in my control. When other circumstances, what's Kripa? There are so many other circumstances in spiritual life that has to be fulfilled. You have to have a proper circumstance, that the proper environment, the help of the Guru. So many other factors are there that also has to coalesce with your effort. Just even in a school, that a student, however intelligent he may be, if he doesn't get a proper environment where the professors are there, the teachers are there, the university with all its facilities are there, but just with a mere intelligence, can he really excel in life? No, those other factors also has to coalesce with his intelligence. Similarly in spiritual journey, that my effort alone is not the thing which is going to take me to the illumination. There are so many other factors which all has to come together and coalesce with my effort. And those are not in my hand. When it will come, I don't know. So that's why that when Kripa Siddha doesn't mean that there is no effort on my part. I have to keep my field ready. As even in the last class, we were giving the example of one of the parables of Jesus, the parable of 10 virgins. The 10 virgins, they were the bridesmaids. So they were waiting for the groom, the bridegroom to come. It was quite late at night. So they were just waiting when the bridegroom will come. And now one of those virgins fell asleep. So they were all waiting with the lamp. One of them fell asleep. So when the bridegroom came, those who were awake, they could see. But the one who fell asleep, he couldn't see. So when the bridegroom will come, no one knows. So that's what when he is saying that God descends all of a sudden. That's the idea. It's unpredictable. When the grace factor, when all other circumstances will coalesce with my effort, we don't know that. So that's why we should be very careful while living those lives. We shouldn't think that as God's grace may come all of a sudden, and that's unpredictable, and without that there cannot be any liberation. Why to go with my sadhana? It has to go on. You have to keep the field ready, and then only the grace will descend upon us. And not only that, the one who is really eager and has kept his field ready, for him the chance of the grace for other factors to coalesce and make the illumination, spiritual illuminations possible is much higher. Because the plan of the universe is such that whatever you desire, the entire nature will conspire to make your dream fulfilled. So in Yoga Sutra, when we were reading the Patanjali Yoga Sutra long back, few years back, so there we find there's a wonderful concept called karma shaya. Very interesting. That they say that when I am doing any action, when I am thinking a thought, they all create samskara. So whatever this vritti is in my mind, so that's whether it is karma vritti or bhoga vritti, my feelings, my emotions. So these bhoga vrittis, they are also forming sanskaras, and karma vritti, whatever actions I am doing, whatever thought I am thinking, they are creating samskaras. That is something, the individual aspect of karma. So they create a latent impressions, creating a tendency in me to do those things again and again. And that's how we develop the skills. Those sanskaras speaks of the skills. So that's a very individual aspect. But they say the karma has another aspect. That is a cosmic aspect. That doesn't has to do anything with the individual. What's that? That is the karma ashaya. Karma ashaya, the receptacle of karma. What it means? That all the actions in individual aspect, it is creating samskaras in us. The samskaras and again in turn creates vasanas. And the other collective aspect, it is creating karmashaya. What it means? That of all the samskaras which I have formed, and they again has formed vasanas. Now all the vasanas won't fructify at a time. As per the preponderance, a few of those vasanas will come together and form as if a composite whole. To as if take me to a certain circumstances, I will be almost gravitated. I have no control over it. Where I will find all the environmental situations are favorable for all those vasanas to fructify. The best way is to give through an example. Let us try to understand that how these two aspects, one is the individual aspect and other is the cosmic aspect, the collective aspect. That example which we give is a student at the very inception of his studies. Most probably he had no interest in his studies. The parents were insisting, the teachers were insisting that you have to study to really excel in life. So with this constant insistence somehow became internalized. Now no one has to say. The boy himself have understood that I have to study. Now at the beginning it is a matter of willpower. Constantly he has to remind himself. Forcefully he has to sit for his studies. That's why it is called Chhatranam Adhyayanam tapaha. For the student, studying is austerity. What tapa means? Tapa means, the word tapa came from tapas, means tap, heat. When anything is moving against a body, it generates a friction. And from that friction, the heat is generated. What it speaks of, that anything motion is opposed in the form of friction, and that friction creates heat. So in our life, whenever we are trying to proceed in a particular direction, there will be some opposing factors, not external, even internal, in the form of procrastination, lethargy, distraction. So all those are the hindrance factor. I have to work against them. So just the way while moving against the friction creates heat, here also as if you are moving against the friction. So that's the idea of tapas, tapa. So when you are doing that, gradually the samskaras are formed. Now the latent impression starts forming. So now you don't have to force yourself. It becomes an habit. So now you become habitually a studious student. So now as a result, what happens in the individual aspect? You have developed a samskara, the tendency to study. And that again in the individual aspect results in good grades. That's quite individual aspect. Now these are the good grades, most probably in the 12th year, after which I am going to study in the university. These are the grades which will help me to gravitate in an environment. Suppose the student is interested in medical science. So he will get admitted to this medical college. The entire medical college is not the product of his karma. It's not the product. But it is a cosmic aspect, collective aspect. The entire human society has created it so that those who really have this skills, this intelligence, the proficiency to study that course, they can get admitted there. So you are now gravitated there. Once you are gravitated, as a student, I was good in all the studies, all the subjects, but now only a few of the vasanas. What? My interest in biological science. That will find prominence. Other things will now become dormant. Most probably as a student, I had some interest in co-curricular activities, some other subjects. For the time being, they become dormant. My interest in the medical science, in the biological science, that becomes something vyakta, which finds expression. And that defines me, that now I become a medical student with all those interest in all those medical subjects, biological subjects. And that defines my jati, that what I am a medical student. That determines my duration, for how long I have to stay. Ayu, so for 4.5 years, 7 years, 8 years, whatever it may be. Bhoga. Now all have not become a medical student with the same caliber. Some somehow entered into it. Some were really good students, real studious student. So we'll find that in the medical college, some are with ease going through the course. Some are really struggling. So bhoga, experience is also not the same. So this very nicely in the Yoga Sutra you'll find has been defined, that you have been gravitated. Your samskara has gravitated you to that particular environment where you will be going through particular duration, your particular experiences, and you will be in a particular jati as a medical student. So this is the thing which speaks of transmigration also. That if in this life I have developed interest in a particular field, most probably in the spiritual life I find that I have a tremendous, many will be complaining that Swamiji, you are so lucky that somehow you have been in the monastery, you did not have to enter the family life. We really have the tremendous urge, intense desire to lead a spiritual life, but the family doesn't allow. So it's family responsibilities, commitments. Know it for certain, this urge which you have created by your good samskara, that's why we say that we never get all the answers just by in this one life. Now in the next birth, I will be gravitated to an environment where I will find that I am getting the favorable circumstances. So this is the idea of kripa. That this, where you will be gravitated, that's not in your control. But as you have already really tried hard, this world is planned in such a way, the entire nature will conspire to make your wish, your wish fulfilled. You will be gravitated to that environment. So now you will be, that's what is in the Bhagavad Gita we say, that Shuchitang Srimatang Gehe Yoga Bhrashto Vijayate. That you are born in a family where there is a good culture, spiritual culture is there, well off to a certain extent, that he is not very poor. So that if you are extremely poor, every day you have to struggle for your sustenance, how can you think of spirituality? As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Khali pete dharma hoy na. In empty stomach you cannot think of religion. And again, too much of wealth, that also becomes a deterrent. Lot of distractions. So you are born in a family that is having sufficient wealth for your sustenance, at the same time have a wonderful culture, and that helps you. And then most probably from there, again, you get a chance for leading a wonderful spiritual life without those hindrances. So that grace factor then naturally comes to that picture. So now, if I see only that birth, I will find, oh, that was the grace which has dawned upon me. How it has come, I don't know. I got all the favorable circumstances. But actually there is a link. There is a link. So that's why when Sri Ramakrishna is saying that suddenly the grace falls upon a person, suddenly the person dawns upon a person, it doesn't mean that there was no effort. The effort was there, but at the same time, other factors are so unpredictable, I don't know when. So in that sense, he is saying that God's grace, as if all of a sudden, descends upon that person. So that was the idea. Even we will find very interesting. There is a verse, there is a mantra, the same mantra in Mundaka Upanishad as well as in the Katha Upanishad. What is that mantra? Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhya Na Medhaya Na Bahuna Srutena Yame Vaisha Vrinute Tena Labhya Yasyaisha Atma Vibrinute Tanum Swam. So what it is saying, that by pravachana, by discussion, by deliberation, I cannot know the self. That generally our idea is all the knowledge is through the intellectual what is the culture? Through your intellect, you culture, and that you get the knowledge, and that entails deliberation, listening, discussion. So all those things entails your enriching of your intellectual knowledge. So here the scripture is saying, very interesting, that just by studying this scripture, do not think that you attain spirituality. Nayam Atma Pravachanena. Through this deliberation, you cannot get that knowledge of Atman. Na Medhaya, not even by your intellect. Na Bahuna Srutena, by constantly listening to the scriptural, the spiritual truths. Neither by that you can attain. Then how we can attain? Yame Vaisha Vrinute. So this now Shankaracharya has translated in two different ways in two different Upanishads. So Yame Vaisha Vrinute. Vrinute means choice, whom he chooses. So in one Upanishad he is saying the one on whom the God's grace descends, as if God has chosen him. He alone can attain that knowledge. And in another Upanishad, he is saying the one who chooses, means one who is aspiring. Most of the people are busy, are quite involved with the worldly desires. They never think of a spiritual way of life. So here he is saying that Vrinute means the one who chooses to lead this type of life, who's aspired to attain the Atman. He attains. Just see, wonderful. In one he is saying it is the aspiration of the sadhaka. In another Upanishad he is saying it is the grace of the divine. So from that, what if we take these two interpretations together, what we can say? That both are required. You have to have tremendous aspiration. That's the factor that has created the field, and the grace like rain then will fall upon you. When it will fall, I don't know. That I have created the field, and that doesn't mean that immediately it will come. But I have to be prepared. And then the grace comes, and these both factors together result in spiritual evolution. So that's the idea which we get from the term, this Kripa Siddha. So after this, the conversation continues. So what his master is saying, those who lead a householder's life should practice spiritual discipline. They should pray eagerly to God in solitude. God cannot be realized through scholarship. Who indeed can understand the things of the spirit through reason? No, all should strive for devotion to the lotus feet of God. Infinite are the glories of God. How little can you fathom them? Can you ever find out meaning of God's ways? So that's the thing, that constantly discussing the scriptures, trying to find out the reason behind the God's, as we say, this world is God's creation, why He created, why I am here. So we'll find that we have so many doubts and we are trying to find the answer of that, and always we are spending time in all those discussions, the glories. So that in no way is going to help us spiritually. As Sri Ramakrishna in some other context is saying, that two friends went to a mango orchard. One of them immediately started tasting the mangoes, climbed the tree and he was tasting the mangoes. Even in Australia you will find that you can just go to an orchard, and if you are just tasting the fruits there itself, for that they won't charge you. What you take away, that they will charge. So as much as you want you can take. So something like that. So one of them started eating the mangoes, and the other was counting the leaves and the branches. Who is the one intelligent one? So most of us in the name of spirituality are counting the leaves and branches of the tree. The real spiritual aspirant, the real clever one, is the one who tests the mango. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. So why to go on speculating why the perfect became imperfect? Very interesting. Even if you read the Swami Vivekananda's paper on Hinduism in Chicago, this Parliament of Religion, Swamiji became overnight a famous figure for the first address. That's a 7-minute address. But that's not the only speech which he delivered in the Parliament of Religion. There was many sessions. Almost in the end of that parliament, there was a session in which Swamiji read a paper on Hinduism. There, that paper, that's a wonderful synopsis of Hinduism. If you have chance, you should read that lecture, the paper on Hinduism by Swami Vivekananda. So there, very interesting what he's saying, that a spiritual aspirant, through his spiritual practices, may go to a state where he can relate to that idea that actually he is not a limited being, that he is the reality behind the entire existence. That tameva viditva ati mrityu meti nanya pantha vidyate anaya. That's the only way to escape this chain of cycle of birth and death, to know your real nature. Tameva viditva ati mrityu, go beyond the death. So in spiritual journey we find that from this imperfection we do reach a state of perfection where it is not attainment, it is not prapti, it is apti. I was forgetful about my own nature, I again regain it back. I was just forgetful about it, it was always with me. So now the question comes that once the dream has broken, I have come out of the dream. And then the question comes, how I have started dreaming? Why I am always a perfect being? Why I was being deluded? Why I was thinking myself as this limited being? Now if you try to find out the answer of that, it's impossible to find answer. There are so many philosophies, they are trying to find that answer, it's impossible. That why the perfect became imperfect. And then Swamiji is saying very nicely, the Vedantists are very bold. They give a very bold answer. What is the bold answer? We don't know. That's the answer, we don't know. And that is what in Vedanta is called ignorance, that how the perfect became imperfect. That's ajnana. We don't know. Somehow this has happened, and that is making us feel what I am not as my nature. I have taken the non-self as the self. And then if I go on asking, I can never find that when the dream started. And very interesting, you will find that all the philosophies are trying to find the answer of that. And that's why when Buddha came, he was silent about God. Was he really a Nastika? No. He was an atheist. There is no such reference which speaks that he was an atheist. When he was asked whether God is, he used to be silent. And then the one who used to ask the question, he thought that most probably he doesn't believe in God. So then again the next question will be, oh, then God is not, isn't it? Then also he would remain silent. He will never answer. He was silent about the existence or the non-existence of God. You know why? His answer is, he used to say that the truth, unless you have realized it, what's the use of merely speaking of it? That doesn't make any sense. If you have not tasted the mango, however I may try to explain the taste of mango, will it make any sense? No. So why to answer some question for which you don't have any realization? So then Buddha used to say a very interesting thing. My intention is not to answer why the perfect became imperfect. My thing is, I never speak of the principle. My intention is just to show you the way out. There is a way out of it. And that's the Ashtamarga he's saying, that follow this path, it will take you out of this. And he used to give a very nice example. Suppose you are passing through a forest, and from nowhere suddenly an arrow comes, a poisoned arrow comes and pierces you. What will you do? Will you sit down and go on just pondering over the fact that who has shot the arrow, why he has shot the arrow, what poison he has used? By the time you will die. Your immediate duty is to get rid of the arrow, apply antidote and save yourself. So to ask this question, how the perfect became imperfect, is just like that. So we don't know, and there is no need for that, but there is a way out. And that's the thing which Sri Ramakrishna is also indicating here. That what's the use of just simply trying to fathom that how the perfect, with all his infinite glories, has descended upon as a human being. So we need not go on thinking of all those things. So that's why he's saying that one can never find out the meaning of the God's ways. This infinite are the glories of God. How little can you fathom them? Can you ever find out the meaning of the God's ways? And then he is giving an example from Mahabharata. Bhishma was none other than one of the 8 Vasus. But even he shed tears on his bed of arrows. He said, how astonishing! God himself is the companion of the Pandava brothers, and still there is no end to their troubles and sorrows. Who can ever understand the ways of God? So the point here is that though there are troubles and sorrows, God has not forsaken the Pandavas. The Bhishma is saying that the God is with them, but still they have so much sorrow. So now these words may make us feel, then what's the use of calling on God? Even He cannot save us from my sorrows. That's not the point. The point is that though we have this lots of struggles and miseries, God is still with us. He has never forsaken us. We can never know the reason that why He has why He is taking us through all these trials and tribulations. In a shortly, we can say in the words of Swamiji, it's actually to make us strong, to take us out of this ignorance. So Swamiji used to say that this world is not a pleasure garden, but it is a gymnasium where we have came to make ourselves strong. All these hurdles in life is just to make us strong enough to recognize our unity with God. It is always there. God is always with us. It is we who have forgotten it. This idea that God has never forsaken us, He is always with us. Though we may turn around, we may run away from God, God is always there to accept us, waiting. This is the idea which we find even in the Bible. There's a nice story, the story of the prodigal child. A rich man had 2 sons. The elder son was obedient. He was with his father, helping his father, and was obedient. The young one was a bit freedom seeking. He wanted to be separate. He wanted to be liberal. He wanted to be liberated. He asked his father that give me my share of property, whatever I inherit. I want to live a free life, separate from you. The father knew that he is not sufficiently mature. He tried to explain him that you will be in danger, you will be in peril. But the son never listened. The younger one never listened. So at last the father had to share the inheritance for this young boy wanted. So with that he separated himself. He went at some faraway land and he started living his life independently. But as his father predicted, that was a fact, that he was really not a responsible person. He started wasting his wealth, squandering his wealth, and he became a pauper. Totally he was a poor person. All the wealth that his father has given him, he has all wasted all of them. And now the thought of his father came, because he cannot sustain himself. He has squandered all the wealth. He has become a pauper. So now again the thought of father came. But at the same time he was fearing, if I go back to my father, he will kick me out. Because I have wasted his wealth. I haven't listened to him. I was disobedient. But as there was no way, with all fear, he started returning. And when his father saw him from a distance, it is he who came running, embraced his son, brought him back, and there was a huge celebration for his son's homecoming. So that's the story. That why our perils and dangers are there, so that at last we turn around. We just have to turn around. God is always with us. He is waiting. He wants us to resign, that resignation. We will find even in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, Bhagavan is speaking of this Sharanagati. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhya mokshay Swami ya ma shuchah. Very interesting. Till the 17th chapters we find Bhagavan is instructing in various yogas that through your effort, as per your inclination, these various yogas are there with which you try for perfection. And again the 18th chapter, what is saying? Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. So all those practices, in the words of Ramakrishna, is for the tiring of our wings, so that the real resignation comes. That story is there. A bird was sitting on the mast of a ship. It was in the deep waters of the ocean. It wanted to go to the shore. It flew to the east direction, west, north, south. Nowhere it could find any land. It was totally tired, exhausted. Now it sat on the mast with a full resignation. Let the ship take me. So all these struggles are at last to bring that resignation. God has never forsaken us. He is with us, so that at last we can realize, even in Bhagavad Gita we find, in all those struggles, what Bhagavan is saying? Nimitta matra bhava sabhya sachin. Just become an instrument. Let the divine work through you. So in all our struggles, in all our turmoils, we should never feel that God has forsaken us. We have to go through all those turmoils. So sometimes this bewilders us. We think that we find that why I am going through all those things, really God loves me. It is the way of making us perfect. that when the mother is scolding the small boy, the child may feel that mother has got angry with me. But has she really got angry? No. She wants the child to be reformed. So whether she is cajoling the child or scolding, for everything is meant for the welfare of the child. So that's why you will find the child knows there is no other who is going to protect him. It's the mother only. So even when the mother is scolding the child, or even sometimes maybe thrashing the child for some reason, you will find the mother will be holding to the child itself. But the mother is giving this thrashing the child, but the child has nowhere to go. He will be holding the mother and crying. So knowing very well, she is the one who is going to take care of me, protect me. So that's the idea, seeing which Bhishma also was very much bewildered, that God is with them. But see how much struggles, turmoil through which he has to go through. And seeing that, he was crying. So who can understand the ways of God? So he has his way to wade us through the turmoils of life, and his will be done in his way. Even when we resign, we say, very interesting, we say, "Oh God, thy will be done." But one thing silently we say along with that, "in my way." So we always say, "God, oh God, thy will be done." So it's not in our way, it's not in the way we wish. It's in the God's way. And we don't know how much these struggles and turmoils, most probably have to go through that. It's not just as per my sweet wish God is going to deliver me. It is He who knows. So I have to fully resign, knowing well He is the one who is not going to forsake me anytime. So He will take me through all the struggles at last to that perfection. So be a nimitta matra. So that's what Swamiji also used to say very nicely, that yours is not to reason why, but to do and die. Be of good cheer, that you have been selected by the Lord for great deeds. So know it for certain, that be of good cheer. You have been selected by the Lord for great deeds. So all these deeds, at last, you attain Him alone. So never go on asking why, never to reason why, but to do and die. So that sense of sacrifice should be there, that my life is after all a way, a sacrifice, to renounce something which is very trivial for something which is the real treasure. So that's, I am renouncing the trivial for getting the treasure, which appears as a struggle. But this struggle actually entails in my association, eternal association with the divine. A man thinks, Sri Ramakrishna is continuing in his conversation, a man thinks, I have practiced a little prayer and austerity, so I have gained a victory over others. But victory and defeat lie with God. I have seen a prostitute dying in the Ganges and retaining consciousness to the end. So this is the thing, that again and again, this now you will find that after Kripa Siddha, these words are Sri Ramakrishna is saying, you have to connect all of them. That grace is really something, it comes all of a sudden. But we don't know when it will come. Our preparation has to go on. So here he is giving that example of a prostitute. Most probably the circumstances were such that she was leading that life, but inwardly there was a lot of repentance, lot of remembrance, a lot of prayers. And that's the thing which allowed her to die in such a nice way. That she died in the, most probably the time of death, she was aware, she asked others to take her to the bank of the Ganges, and there repeating the God's name. That used to be the practice in those days. Those traditions now are lost. Because now, because of the advancement of all our science and all, when I am sick, I never think of going to the bank of Ganges. I, of course, will be in the ICU. So the question of staying in going to the... So, but in those people with the simple faith, for they used to go, that for them the ICU was the side bank of the Ganges. The intensive care only God can take, no one else. So that's why this in the Sadhu Samaj there is a very nice saying that Aushadham Janhavi Toyam Vaidya Narayana Hari. So he is the only physician who can cure me from the disease of worldliness. That's the biggest disease. He can cure me from the disease of the worldliness. And the Ganges water is the only medicine. This Aushadham Janhavi Toyam Vaidya Narayana Hari. So they used to go to the bank of the Ganges. Their entire body was smeared with the sediments of the Ganga, which when the Ganga is in the high tide, along with its water, this lot of mud also comes to the bank, and in the low tide the water recedes back, but all those mud remains. So those mud is also considered to be very holy. So they will ask, in those days this tradition was there, they smear the body with all that mud as if it is a process of cleansing. So the physical acts are not important. The ideas associated with that, when these things are done, just think a man of faith, what a tremendous intense thought of the divine he is having or she is having that time. And that's the state in which he or she is living the body. So these are very important. What these acts, sometimes we may say what's the meaning behind it. Its act is not important. The ideas associated with it. See, even you will find very interesting that many that we say that in the time of when one dies, we have the Shraddha ceremony, and there is a food offering to the departed. And many will be asking, do the departed really come and take the food? Well, I will relate a very nice incident in the life of Swamiji. When Swamiji was in Chennai, before going to the West, he was in Chennai, and he every day had the vision of a departed soul. He was extremely tormented. He was every day used to come to Swamiji and was requesting him that no one has did this last rites. I am in a very, very state which has entailed extreme suffering. Please do my last rite so that I can get liberated. 2-3 nights Swamiji saw this ghost, this departed soul in the vision. And then what Swamiji did is something very interesting. He went to the sea beach, took in his hand some sand, and as if offering it to the departed soul, he just offered that sand oblation into the ocean water, visualizing that I am offering it to the departed soul. And from the next day, he wasn't disturbed anymore. So just see the act. It was not the food. With this thought, so the departed soul is relating with us through thought, not through that food. But the food, when you are offering, that intensifies. You are thinking of the departed soul, you are praying for him. Those are the things that helps. These are the things which are just there to bring that thought, bring that feeling. So now Swamiji is very nicely, just with sand particle he is doing, and it's not food. But when he is doing, that intense prayer is there, that let he be liberated from this state which is suffering. And we find from the next day is no more disturbed. That speaks of that he has actually got released from that preta sharira. So what all this speaks of? This speaks of that what's the feeling which you have. So the external circumstances never define us. What is the inner feeling? There's a nice story again in the gospel that 2 friends were passing by the road and some Bhagavata recital was going on. One of the friend, he told, how nice this Bhagavata recital is going on. Come, let's go and just listen to this Bhagavata recital. The other friend told, no, I'm not interested. You go. I want to enjoy. And so he went to some place of ill repute. And now the one who was sitting in the Bhagavatam recital, he found it to be extremely boring. He told, what this person is speaking nonsense, and I am getting bored here. Oh, how my friend is enjoying. And the friend who went to that ill repute place, he was thinking, just see, my friend how he is enjoying this divine talk, and I am wasting my time in all these worldly pursuits, in the sensuous pursuits. So he was full of repentance. And when they died, so that Sri Ramakrishna is saying, from the Vishnu Loka, the emissaries of the Vishnu Loka came to the person who went to the place of the ill repute, and the so-called of Yama, the emissaries of Yama came to the person to take the person who was in the Bhagavatam recital. What it speaks, where you are, that's not important, where your mind is. So sometimes the life situation may be such that one may be thrown into certain circumstances. Just say, think of a prostitute. Most probably that we know that it's a matter of such a ill fortune that one has to be in such situation. But we don't know the mind. The mind may be very pure, constantly praying, constantly wanting to be liberated from this type of circumstances. And that speaks of, and the last moment you find, so that's why she's thinking of the bank of the Ganges. She went there and with full awareness delivered his body, left his body. And a so-called renunciate, whom the society adores, who is a renunciate, may be constantly thinking of the worldly pursuits only, though physically most probably he is out of all the worldly entanglements, but in mind he may be there. So that's why we don't know that what is our state of our mind. We don't know. It is not visible from that. And that actually speaks of our real spiritual unfoldment. And that's the thing, that if you have practiced little prayer, meditation, austerity, that's of no use unless your mind has really become attuned to the divine. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that in this spiritual life, that's why what we can do, we can persevere. We don't know in what circumstances we may be, but we go on trying, so that at last, that I do get circumstances like this, even for this prostitute. At last she managed to go to the bank of the Ganges to get that wonderful, intense spiritual feeling of dying by the side of the holy water. So that the circumstances suddenly changed. She was taken there, and immediately it helped her to liberate from all the so-called impurities. So when it will happen, we don't know. We are trying. So that's why this perseverance is very important. And in Raja Yoga, Swami Vivekananda speaks of a very nice story, that once Narada Muni was passing through a street and he saw a hermit meditating, and he was meditating for such a long time without moving, sitting in one place, that an ant hill has grown around him. So that speaks of his severe austerity. Now when Narada Muni was passing through that road, that hermit asked, as you are coming from the Vishnu Loka, can you go and ask when you again return, can you just please ask Vishnu that when I am going to get liberated, and please let me know that. What he answers, well, okay, the next time I come I will let you know. And then he proceeds on his road, and then he meets a man a bit far away. He meets a person who was dancing merrily under a tree. He was just full of merriment, was dancing. So some music he was singing and he was dancing. And he, seeing Narada, he was also curious. He asked, please ask the Lord when I am going to get liberated. Well, okay, I will ask for you also. And the next time when Narada was coming back, see, first the hermit asked, have you asked? Well, yeah. So when are you going to get liberated? Well, the Lord told, in 3 births. Now he was fully frustrated. After so much of austerity, another 3 births. So he was full of frustration. Narada Muni was proceeding again, and he met that person who was full of merriment. And now he, again seeing Narada, he also asked, have you asked the Lord in how many births I am going to get liberated? Well, yeah. Well, what the Lord has told? Well, told, you see this tree, you look above. It was a tamarind tree. You know, the leaves of tamarind are very small. So you can see the leaves, how many leaves are there? That as many leaves, so many birds. You have to be born, and then only you will be liberated. And this man now really started dancing more joyously. Well, at last I will be liberated. He was very happy that at last he is going to be liberated. And after this was a test, and Narada says, you are liberated now itself. So this is a story in the Raja Yoga Swami is saying. What he is saying, that in spiritual life, this perseverance is very important. That let me go on with my practices without being impatient about when I am going to achieve the goal. Let me go on doing. Lord knows the best when He is going to liberate me. Let me not stop my spiritual journey by thinking that nothing is happening. What's the use of doing it? So we have to continue. So this is the thing which speaks of our perseverance. So when God's grace is going to descend, I don't know. But let me persevere. Let me have patience and let me persevere. So that's the idea. So that I have practiced a little prayer and austerity, and so I have gained a victory over others. But victory and defeat lie with God. I have seen a prostitute dying in the Ganges and retaining consciousness to the end. So all these discussions we are saying that from these words of the Master, we may not be deluded by thinking that on my part I have to do nothing, that suddenly God's grace will come. No, I have to keep myself prepared. So that's the idea. And that preparation means practice, purity, patience, perseverance. That practice speaks of the purity, constantly trying to keep my mind in that holy thoughts, holy ideas, and that entails in patience and perseverance. That it's not I should get frustrated just by practicing a little. I have to have that patience, I have to have that perseverance. And in time, when God knows it's the best, then the spiritual transcendence is going to happen. So now, Mr. Chaudhary, someone who was there, a devotee, he says, how can one see God? The Master, not with these eyes. God gives one divine eyes, and only then can one behold Him. God gave Arjuna divine eyes so that he might see His universal form. So this reminds me of this Ramakrishna's conversation with Naren. When the Naren for the first time came and asked Sri Ramakrishna, here the question was, can one see God? But Naren's question was more direct. He asked, have you seen God? And Ramakrishna's answer was something remarkable. What he said? Yes, I have seen God as I am seeing you. And then what he told is interesting. Actually, it is more clear than seeing you. So here, why I'm just trying to relate, we are trying to relate these words which Ramakrishna spoke to Naren with these words, that God gives one the divine eyes. What are the divine eyes actually speaking of? So in the scriptures, they speak of two types of realization, anubhuti, paroksha, aparoksha. These terms are also very interesting. That all our perceptions at present are paroksha. Paroksha means what? With the help. All our perceptions are happening with the help of something which is beyond me, which I am not, para, which is apart from me. What are they? The mind and the senses. They are the props for me. Without the mind and the senses, I can see nothing. The self as if is projecting through the mind and the senses to break into this spectrum of this world of name and form. So the self has to relate as if through the mind and senses. That's what is paroksha. So all I see is paroksha. But when I am seeing, when I am realizing my own self, then instead of moving out through the mind and the senses, I am actually diving within. This instead of parak, moving out, it is pratyak, going in. So there is neither the mind nor the senses. Without that, it's a direct perception. Seeing the self by the self, getting established in the self. And that's the idea of the divine eye. It's not this eye. It is something which the self realizes by the self. And that's the thing which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. So the God gave Arjuna the divine eyes. With these ordinary eyes he couldn't see the universal form. What's the universal form? That God is everything. That's the thing he saw in the Vishwarup Darshana. And that's what happened for a spiritual aspirant. Through his spiritual practices, once he goes to the Samadhi, sees that the entire creation has merged in the self. The only thing that exists is the self. And when again he is with Vyuthana, he comes out of the Samadhi. He again sees the same world, but now his perception has changed. He's not in the same way he's seeing. He sees it is the divine which is manifested as this world. Isn't it the Vishwarup Darshana? For all realized soul, when they come back from their Samadhi, there's a Vyuthana. What they see is Vishwarupa. And that's what that's the aphoristic meaning of the Vishwarupa Darshana, even in Bhagavad Gita. When we will find that when Krishna is saying in one of the chapters, the Vibhuti, that in everything, it is I who am manifested in Vibhuti Yoga. He is indicating that. And that Arjuna wants to see. And then Krishna is giving him that divine vision. What it speaks of? It doesn't speak of these eyes. You have to dive within. And then from that, when you come out, when you are returning, then you see the entire world permeated with that divine consciousness alone. And that's the real Vishwarupa Darshana. That's the allegorical meaning of the Vishwarupa Darshana. And that's what Ramakrishna is indicating. That not with these eyes. You cannot see that when we think that someone has seen God, immediately we will have an idea that, everything, for every perception, the mind and senses has to come into picture. So here to indicate that you have to go beyond the mind and senses. He is saying that not with these eyes. It is a special type of eye. That's this anubhuti by diving within, and by which we gain the wisdom. That is being indicated by the third eye. That's the eye of the wisdom. It's not something like the physical eye, but it speaks of the real wisdom, the real thing. This eye is constantly showing us the distorted thing. And what I am seeing is Maya. What it is not, I am taking it as reality and seeing it. But when I dive within, then I see the self as the self. What I visualize, that's the real truth. Everything else is just Maya, is appearance. Ma means negation, Ya means yatha yatha. I am not seeing. That is a negation. I am not seeing the thing as it is. That's what these eyes do. We are deluded. We think with the eyes, what I see is the thing which proves its validity. But Sri Ramakrishna is indicating that no, the real validity is only with the vision, the divine vision. For that you need a special eye, not this eye. What it speaks of aparoksha anubhuti, without this mind and senses. That's why the ultimate reality has been mentioned as avang manasa gocharam, beyond the vaka, means behind your speech, beyond your mind. Mano agocharam, it is not with this mind. You have to go beyond it, and then only you can realize the self by the self. And that speaks of the aparoksha anubhuti, which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that God can be seen, but not with these eyes. God gives as if one the divine eyes, and only then one behold him. God gave Arjuna the divine eyes, that he might see his universal form. That's the universal form is the state of a Vijnani. That by negating the world, you go to that realization, and when you come back, what you have negated, that entire thing becomes permeated by the divine. So that's the Vishwarupa Darshana, which Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of, which has been metaphorically spoken of in Bhagavad Gita as Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga of this Arjuna's Vishwarupa Darshana, as has been bestowed upon him by Krishna. So we'll find this. That's what we say, that Sri Ramakrishna's words are very simple, but behind it, this entire our Vedanta's philosophy is there. That's why Swami Vivekananda used to say, sometimes we think that most probably out of devotion he's saying those words. But they only realized what Master have said, because they are also realized soul. So that's why Swami Vivekananda used to say that Ramakrishna's word has even surpassed Vedas and Vedanta. It is so full of deep layers of understanding. As you go into it, the simple words are not that simple. It has layers of meaning, and which, as it is coming from the depth of his realization, it appears to be so easy. Just if you remember in the school, when the teacher, the maths teacher, is solving some maths problem in the board, the student looks at it and thinks, oh, it's so easy, because the teacher is doing so spontaneously. And then he, with a duster, he rubs the entire thing and he just erases the entire thing and asks the student, have you understood? Yes, I have understood. Come and do it. And now he will find he will be faltering at each and every step. When the master was doing, you felt it was so easy. Why? Because doing out of spontaneity. Here also the gospel appears to be so simple. The master, from the depth of his realization, when he is speaking, it appears to be spontaneous and we think we have understood. But it's really that not easy. The more we really try to contemplate on this spiritual truth from our spiritual heritage, from our spiritual background, and try to dive deep into these words, we'll find that how this layers and layers of understanding will open up, and that speaks of this tremendous value of this gospel. It's a tremendous, it's a scripture which speaks of the all encompassment, the entire, the way the Vedanta is encompassed in it. So with this, we stop our discussion today. We'll continue with the remaining portion again in the next class. Thank you all. Namaskar.